Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to demonstrate a series of movements that we can do for our hips and our glutes in a seated position in a seated um, chair. I'm sitting on a little couch right now. That's fine. Whatever you're sitting on is totally fine. And these movements are great for getting those hips activated and moving in their natural range of movement, particularly if we've been sitting a lot. They can be very helpful for supporting our range of movement and also activating the hip muscles, strengthening the hips. And we can do it all in our chair and not have to get up and down off the floor. So this is the sequence for sitting in our chairs. The props that we'll need, I have a little stool, just a little step stool here. So any kind of little stool or footstool or anything like that that you can just be able to bring your legs up to or your feet up to. You'll also want um, either a yoga block or just a pillow, like a thicker pillow, and then possibly a strap or a belt of some sort. And it's fine if you don't have that. It's just optional. Okay. So the first movement that we'll do, and these are great movements to do. Again, if you've been sitting a lot, if you need to get your hips activated, they could be great movements to do before you come up to standing. If you've been sitting for a while, before you go for a walk, to get your hips nice and activated. So I'm just going to scooch this aside. The first one we're going to do is a glute squeeze. And so we'll want our feet kind of right under the knees, and we're going to bring the feet together if that's available for you. If it's not, you could have the feet a little wider here. And we'll start by squeezing the glutes so that the leg bones rotate outward. So think about this kind of rotation outward as we squeeze the glutes, right? And you'll notice that my whole body and my whole upper body lifts up, and not because I'm doing anything with my upper body. It's just that the movement of the glutes and the hips, that rotation and the glute activation makes my body lift. Right? So what we're looking for here is to kind of isolate this movement to the glutes. So we don't need the inner thighs engaging here or the quads or anything in the front of the legs. It's just our glutes. And we'll do this for about a minute. And if a minute feels too long for you, that's totally fine. Do a little less. Do 30 seconds. Do 15 seconds. Do 10 of them. That's completely fine. It's just the idea of getting the glutes turned on and activated and doing a little work for you. Okay, we'll just take a few more here. Keep making sure you're breathing, nice full breaths. And then the last one that we do, we'll just squeeze the glutes and hold, take a breath in. And as you breathe out, we're going to release slowly. Release, 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 and relax everything. Take a breath in and out. Okay, and then we'll just bring a little space between the feet. The next one we're going to be doing is a little marching. So for this one, we want to make sure that the hips are nice and firmly on the seat, and the upper body stays kind of in place. So what we're activating here are these deep hip flexor muscles, and we're just lifting a leg up, so the foot lifts up, and we're trying to activate those deep hip flexor muscles to do a little marching here. So what we're looking for is that it's just the leg lifting up. So we don't want kind of a hip hiking happening here or a rocking back to make the movement. We're just lifting the leg. That's all. And if you want to have a little fun with it, you could do a little tapping, or you could do a little cross body movement, little cross lateral, which is good for our cognitive abilities as well as our hips. And again, just about a minute. or less, just depending on when your legs and hips get tired. And make sure we're continuing to breathe nice and deep in the belly, in the ribs, lower body. And then we'll just come to stop and take a full breath in and out. Okay, so the next one we'll do, we're going to use either that yoga block or our pillow, our thicker pillow. We're going to place that right between the knees, and we're going to do some squeezing of the pillow, squeezing of the knees inward. So feeling those inner thigh muscles now engaging to squeeze our pillow or our block. You could also do this with like a yoga ball, a water bottle, whatever you have handy that you can bring between the knees, between the thighs, and just give a squeeze. And you can have your feet here about hip width distance. And again, we're kind of isolating this movement to the inner thighs, squeezing inward, the hips staying nice and connected and still on our seat. We're continuing to breathe. And we'll just take a few more. And the last one, we'll squeeze in, hold, take a breath all the way in. And then as you breathe out, release nice and slowly back to center. Yeah. Set our bolster or pillow side. And then the last one that we'll do is internal and external rotation of the leg bones in the hip socket. We're going to use our little stool for that one. So we'll bring it right in front. And then we're just going to bring one foot up to the stool. And if the stool is higher, that's totally fine. We just want this leg to be able to be relaxed. So we don't want, if the stool is higher and what you notice is that you have to rock back to lift the leg up here, then we'd like something a little bit lower here so that the hips can stay firmly on the mat and not have to rock back. Okay. And then here is where you could use the strap if you wanted to. So what we're doing is that we're rotating this big leg bone in the hip socket out and in. So notice that my foot and knee turn out and in, but it's not because they're making this movement happen. It's because the leg bone is moving in the hip socket and the foot is just coming along for the ride. So it's hanging out, doing rotation with the big leg bone. Yeah. So sometimes if this movement is really hard to find, it can be helpful to bring a strap around the foot, around the ball of the foot or the center of the foot, and kind of give just a little bit of a pull here. Not a ton, just a little bit of a pull here. And that can sometimes help us to feel that movement a little bit more. External rotation, internal rotation in the hip socket. Now, this is one that we tend to not access quite as much in our bodies, this rotation. So it might get sore or might feel fatigued pretty quickly. So just only do as much as feels right to you, but lets you get that activation. Really feeling into that hip socket and feeling that big leg bone rotating in the hip socket. Okay. And then we'll just come back to center. If you're using the strap, you can take that off and we'll switch sides. So I like the strap. You can do it with or without. Um, I feel like the strap gives me a little bit more support, a little bit of a container for the movement. So I'll bring that around the foot. You're welcome to join me there, or just do it without the strap. And same thing on this side. Internal, external rotation, leg bone moving in the hip socket. Notice that my upper body is not really doing anything here. It's just kind of hanging out. And pelvis is nice and stable. And I'm just rotating. And you might notice that one side feels really different from the other. Totally fine. Totally normal. Leg bones moving in the hip socket. And if your movement looks different from mine, that's completely fine. If it feels like you're moving the big leg bone in the hip socket, that's fantastic, right? If you can feel that rotation, you can feel that deep in the hip socket, awesome. Just remember to keep breathing, keep relaxed in the upper body. Remember that there are lots of things that don't need to be helping to make this movement, like our shoulders, our jaw, right? We can keep all of those things nice and relaxed while we just rotate the leg. Okay, just a couple more on this side. Good. And back to neutral. And then if you're using the strap, we'll take that strap off. We're going to do one more here with the footstool. So for this one, we'll bring both legs up. And we'll just start on the right side. We'll rotate that leg out, just like we were doing before with the internal external rotation. We're going to rotate it out, and then we're going to lift it slowly, trying to move from that hip flexor like we did before. So we're not rocking back here. We just want to lift the leg, cross the ankles, and then we're going to start to bend the knee so that we slide that ankle up toward the knee. Now, yours is going to land wherever it lands. So you'll know when to stop when you're not able to go any higher without some compensations, without using your hands or leaning back to bring it up further, right? We don't want to do any of that. We just want to bend the leg and just let it slide up. Okay, so mine lands right below the knee. That's totally fine there. And then we're just going to gently open that hip a little bit by pressing the knee down toward the floor. So again, we're moving the big leg bone in the hip socket. And you might feel some of that glute engagement like we were doing with the squeezes. You might feel that here as you're pressing the knee and the leg away from the body and then releasing. Okay, just a few more here. And then pressing and holding for a deep breath in, and then a release of all the muscles. We'll slide that leg back down, uncross the ankles, and then maybe you want to move the legs a little bit, a little rocking or bouncing. And then we'll take that on the other side. Rotate outward, lift the leg, cross the ankles, nice and slowly slide that leg up, keeping the pelvis level, upper body still, landing where it lands. For me, that's right below the knee. Yours might be a little lower. Could also be a little higher. And then notice how different this hip is, right? Notice how much higher this knee is and how much less outward movement it has. So fine, it's just the way my hips are. And we'll do the same movement on this side. We're pressing the leg away from the body. And again, maybe you feel that little bit of lift, that little bit of glute squeeze in the back. And it's totally fine if it feels different on the side. For me on this side, it feels a lot harder to do. I have less rotation on this side. It's a little stickier. That's great. It just is. It's totally fine. And I still get lots of benefit from doing this movement on both sides. We'll just take a couple more. So I'm not really counting here. If it feels better to you to count, if you want to count so that you do the same number on both sides, that's fine. If you're more of a timer person, you want to time for, say, a minute for each one, that's fine. If it's good for you to just kind of be with the movement, feel what you feel, and then stop when you feel done, that's also fine. Okay, and then we'll just press the leg toward the floor, hold, take a breath in, and then release and relax. Slide that foot back down, uncross the ankles, maybe a little bounce for the legs if that feels good, a little rock. Yeah. And then from there, bringing the feet back to the floor. And I'd love for you to just stand up at this point. So just standing up if that's available to you. And that's off my head. Let me just readjust. And then just notice how your hips feel, how your glutes feel. Notice anything that you feel in standing. Yeah, and then maybe take a little walk around. Just notice how that feels in your hips and glutes. So, yeah, that's it. That's the movements for our seated hip activation sequence. Um, enjoy exploring. Let me know if you have any questions, and we'll see you next time.